Hello and welcome to our CJ Pro Lighthouse demonstration today. I'm going to introduce our entry-level system. The system is a thermal transfer printer, so you print onto self-adhesive vinyl and print onto paper as well, paper die cuts. What I'm going to do is go through some of the applications with you first of all for the system. I'm John, I look after the UK sales team. I've got James with me today who's in our technical team, so he's going to go through the actual software and we'll show you how the actual printer works. So first of all I'll go through some of the demonstration boards just to show you some of the applications. The main sort of application that a lot of our customers use the system for currently is for things like warehouse marking, racking labels. So you can see on this board, if I just hold it a little bit closer so you don't get any glare there, you can see that we've got things like location numbers, you've got aisle numbers on there as well. You can actually produce barcodes off the system as well, so there's different barcode languages built in there. So the system, like I said, it's a thermal transfer printer. So what it does, it has a resin ribbon, physically burns the ribbon onto the face of the vinyl. So it means you get a durable label. The actual vinyl labels and the vinyl material that we supply, it's outdoor grades, different temperature range as well, so it goes from -40 to +70. So yeah, durable label, much better than using paper on things like racking. This system works, it's got a maximum width of 100mm, prints up to 1.2 meters. It has a guillotine cut that chops off after sort of 1.2 meters. You can print different widths, so the material that we supply is 100mm, 50mm, 30mm and 15mm widths. We do it in various colours, mainly for the 100mm and the 50mm. For the smaller widths it's generally white or yellow because most of our customers either use that for sort of basic labels or they use it for sort of small stores, racking labels. But yeah, so these just gives you an idea of some of the sort of uses that our current customers are using it for. Within the software you have obviously the ability to produce the barcodes. There's different ways that you can import the data, so you can manually type the number in, you can do a sequential number, and also you can link it to things like an Excel spreadsheet, access database. Most people probably use an Excel spreadsheet for things like their racking. They can put all the aisle numbers in, they can use different columns for different variables that they want to put onto the label file. So the software allows you to do that, so basically you don't have to do each one manually. Some of our customers sometimes like to use sequential numbering because they'll do one aisle at a time, but it's a flexible system, flexible software that allows you to sort of use it in the way that you need it. But the great thing is as well, once you've done your initial sort of racking project or run of labels, you have this in future. So if certain labels get damaged, like at the end of aisles, like with forklifts rubbing against them, then you've got the facility to change them quickly, and you don't have to buy in sort of a large reel of labels. Cost-wise, you can see some of these labels here. So the bottom label here is 100mm, probably looking sort of 400mm in length. So it's about 74p for that label. Compare that to sort of buying in, usually sort of £2 plus a label. So it depends on who you are, where you're getting the actual label from. But at least with this system, you know the cost of it each time. You know the cost of the material. So the rolls of vinyl on 100mm works out they're just over £2 a metre. The actual ribbon works out it's about 20p per metre. So you can sort of work out from there cost per label. Other applications, so whether it's warehouse, you can use it for sort of basic health and safety signage. So I say with the 100mm material, we do it in sort of various colours, generally the sort of health and safety colours. Most of the time it's sort of printing onto white or it's printing onto yellow. So I've had to call this system, it's a two-colour system. You've got the colour of the vinyl and you've got the colour of the ribbon. Again, so you've got the different widths at the bottom, but just shows how you can make up a site board using this. Again, we supply all of the Foamex boards, PVC boards, backing boards in case you want to put it onto a board. But effectively with the vinyl, you can stick it directly onto a wall, door, panel of a machine, that kind of thing. So you can, as long as it's a flat surface, you can stick it on there. Next board just shows lockout procedures, things like maintenance labels, calibration, pat test labels. So again, you can see sort of the different widths on there, different colours. You can even put things like schematics. So if it's a line drawing, PDF of a line drawing, you can actually drop that into the software. So if it's a basic, maybe it's basic sort of standard operating procedure, something like that, you can drop it into the software. But this system is great for sort of basic labels. One of the big advantages with the system is it's quick at printing, so it can print up to 100 mil per second. And basically, what it does, it guillotines each label off. We can supply our materials as die-cut labels as well. So if you wanted them to come off the printer without guillotining each one, our sign shop production team can actually manufacture them as die-cut labels for you, just so you can basically keep it on a reel and apply them whenever you need to. So again, great thing with having your own system, you can put on there bespoke information. With the system, going back sort of health and safety wise, with the software, all the symbols, the health and safety symbols are preloaded into the software, so you can drag and drop them. But obviously with your wording, you can make it bespoke, make it site specific. The other side of here, things like shadow boards, so all these tool shapes are all built into the software. So visual management, continuous improvement, that kind of thing you can do on site as well. A lot of our customers like this kind of thing because it's very expensive to buy a visual management board, or generally they paint it themselves. It takes, it just doesn't look professional. So this is something as an added extra that you can use the system for. So this board is on clear vinyl. It's printed black onto clear vinyl. So you can put that on. You can actually put things like weights, asset numbers, all that kind of thing. So you can go into a little bit more detail with that as well. So what I'll do is, I'll pass over to James. What we're going to do is create an aisle number label with a barcode at the bottom, just so you can see the process of how it works. So once he's created that, I'll just quickly show you the printer and how the reels go in, and I can show you some of the material. So if I pass over to James, go through it.
Hello guys, I'm James. So I'll just take you through how to create that label as John said. So with the software open, first thing to do is go to File and New. And here your CJ Pro should be automatically selected. Don't pay too much attention to why I've got two that are called slightly different things. That's just because I have a couple of different ones on there. So that's the one I would like to use. Go to Finish. Now the main thing to do obviously first is to resize your label, because you're actually given roughly a 400mm in length by 100mm on the screen there, as you can see, which is you may want to print that, but it's quite often the case that you don't. So if we actually double click in the grey area outside of the label, here you have quite a few tabs, and they do what they say on the tin really. So printer is similar to the screen you saw initially, so you don't have to worry too much about that. Paper layout, for this one I'm actually going to change it to portrait because it's just much better to print it in that orientation for this particular label. And you can see on the preview it does change. If you go to dimensions, for this purpose we are using the 100mm width vinyl. Obviously if you're using the slightly, like say the 50mm vinyl, you would simply just change that down to 50. But yeah, we're going to stick with 100 for now. And the height for this label I'm going to change to 180, just not far off that to be honest. The margins again, they should just automatically set themselves, so you shouldn't have to worry too much about those. The horizontal and vertical radius is just a visual aspect of the label. You won't be able to tell on the screen, but there is actually a slight radius along the corner there where the cursor is, and that's just again a visual reference in case you have a specific radius of shape you want to actually try and make or try and match something to. So I'm just going to change those to 0. Cutter settings here, that's basically the little cutter on the front of the printer that chops it off at the end of the print. By default it should be enabled, so you shouldn't have to worry about anything like that. And then I'm just going to go to OK. So now we've got our label. If you hold down the control key and use your scroll wheel on your mouse, then you should be able to zoom in, zoom out, or alternatively you can just use the zoom icon up there. So the first thing to do, on the left hand side by way of it's called the toolbar, so here you have quite a few different features. Again, they are quite self-explanatory in the sense that text will import text, curve text, so on and so forth. So for this one, I'm just going to use some text. So you can click onto that and then click onto your label. I'm going to call this one aisle number. Again, it's quite small at the minute, so once you've actually clicked off it, you can resize it how you wish. Move it around. So along the top here, you have your font type. So I'm just going to leave it as Arial for now. Your font size, the bold, italic, underline, so your decoration, your styling, and then the alignment. So I'm just going to align that into the centre and make it bold. Again, I'm just going to zoom out so I can see roughly how we're doing in terms of the proportion of the label. So let's make that a little bit bigger. And to align this to the label, you can use the ruler at the top of the label to actually kind of pinpoint it. But the easiest thing to do is to right click and go to align. So these are just some settings that I've used before. So the vertical centre we don't actually want to align on this occasion because we want it to keep it where it is, but the horizontal we do. So if I do not align there, keep that centre and make sure align to label is ticked. There we go, so that you might have seen that move ever so slightly. So now we want to insert some kind of separation, so I'm just going to insert a line. You may have seen in the label earlier that it just adds a nice bit of, it just separates the actual, almost the name of it or what you're describing the label as from the rest of it. So over here on the left hand side you have a line tool, and it's just a case of simply clicking on line, clicking onto your label, and then I'm going to zoom in because again just by default it is quite small because we're making quite a long label. So I'm going to make that a little bit wider, thicker, and then just increase it like that. Again, if you want to align that to the label, just right click on that, go to align, make sure that vertical is set to do not align because we don't want to actually change the vertical alignment. Centre for horizontal is ticked and aligned to label. I'm not going to click OK for now because there's a slightly different way you can actually align objects together. So if I just click cancel, and you'll notice at the top here you have something called an alignment toolbar, and there's a little black line going through the two objects on there so you can see roughly where the corresponding objects are going to be aligned to. So if I first select the object I want to align to, because this we actually aligned earlier if you remember, and then I'm going to hold down the shift key and select the line. And you can see that it's not far off, but it is slightly to the right. So now on the alignment toolbar, if I click this one here that has the black line going through the centre, you see that's just shifted over nicely. So now we've got the little bit of text at the top, so now we want the bit of data, as it were. So here, if you just go over to the left hand side again, and go to A text. For this label, I'm actually going to use it so it's just a bog standard label in terms of what I enter will be printed. But what you can do, you can actually link to a database, which I'll go through in just a second. So say if you've got, say, I don't know, 50 racks, for example, and you would like to print a batch of 50 labels, but you actually want to just click print once, select the data, and the labels that come out you would like to actually kind of count up from 1 to 50, for example. You can do that. So I'll just show you how it's going to look. So if I just put, let's go with L for Lighthouse, and let's just start at 10. I'm just going to zoom in. Notice as I was doing that, I was actually entering the letter first, which was L, pressing enter to go to 1, and then pressing enter to go again to 0, just so it's actually nicely vertically distributed. Again, so if I just increase that like that. So that's how, once you've linked it to the database, it's going to look something roughly like that if I import that data. So now what I'm going to do is create that database. So if I'm just going to open Excel and move it over for you. Right, here we go. So I'm sure you've all used Excel before, so I'm just going to go to a blank workbook. The most important thing whenever you create a database connection is to use something called a column header, because the software will physically look for that when you're importing the label, because you can have multiple bits of data going on. For this label we're not going to, but yeah, you get the idea. So I'm just going to put so ISO number like that, and then so that's what we call the column header. So now if I just put I don't know, let's just put maybe 10, 15, 18, so on and so forth. And you'll probably notice that they're not going in any kind of order. And that's when you would usually utilise a database connection, because in the software you can actually set up something called a sequential number. So that means you're actually setting a sequence that it either goes up or goes down in. With a database connection, you can still do that, but it's often the reason you'd often actually create a database is if you've got a serial number or something that doesn't go in any sequential order, and you still want to actually change that piece of information. So again, you don't have to worry about aligning this, but I just do it as just as a habit. So I've got 10, 15 and 18. So if I go to File and Save As, I'm just going to browse to a location. And so for this purpose, I'm actually going to change the file type to, you might be able to see, an Excel 97 to 2003 workbook. It's quite important that you actually save it as that. I won't go into too much as to why, but sometimes you can get a login screen appear when you actually open the database, and that should get rid of it. So if I now just call this, I'm just going to call it test for now. I'm just going to save it, let's just save it to my desktop. So save. So now if we close down the Excel database, now we've just got to link it to the label. So similarly how you would actually create a variable, if you go to data along the top of here and go to database access, you can use the wizard if you like to, and this will just take you through step by step how you do it. I personally prefer to use something called new, and that's just, it's almost the same thing, but it's just a slightly different way of doing it. So it's entirely up to you. So first of all, we've got to give it a name. We actually give the database connection a name, and this will become apparent later on when we're actually adding it to the label. So if I just call it LH, like that. Description you don't have to worry too much about. That's just purely for your reference if you want to put something in there. So now you'll see here you have define and browse. So you want to click on browse, and this is where you're actually physically browsing to the location you just saved it. So if I click on that one which I've just saved there, it's all linked without a problem. If you were going to get any kind of issues whilst linking the label, you would get it now. So for example, that login screen that I mentioned, you would be getting that around about now, but that's linked, it's all good. Table is literally referring to, in an Excel spreadsheet you have different sheets, so you can link between different sheets, so that's why with this one it is just sheet 1. An order you don't have to worry too much about if it's just a very basic label. So next, if you go to data retrieving, so this actually sets up how we choose our records when going to print. So it's unlikely, or it may be likely, that you want to actually print all of your or the whole of your database, all the records in one go. Others prefer to print them as and when they need to, or say if they only need one that's been scraped off a rack or something like that, they might just prefer to do that one. So if I click on selected records, and here, if you click on number of labels is defined at print time, apologies, that's my work phone going, I'm just going to mute that. So yeah, if I click on number of labels is defined at print time, that does what it says on the tin really. It enables you to choose how many of each record you want to print and then entered for each record. So it's almost the bottom one for each option. If I then go to fields, you'll see here that is the column header we actually created in the database. So anything in this top box is what is physically in the database but it's not linked. And this bottom field is what is in the label. So you can see that there's nothing there at the minute. So if I just select it, click on the down arrow, and click OK, you can see now in the database connection overview dialog box, it's now the name we gave it. So close. Now to import this into the label, for this actual purpose, if you've got a serial number, for example, that's maybe one serial number is 5 long and one serial number is say 10 long. If you used something called just a text object here, you may find that for one label the text is nicely contained within the label, but for the next one it might be going off the edge. So you can use something called text box instead in that situation, but obviously because that will just actually resize the text accordingly for you, making sure it doesn't go outside any of the boundaries, anything like that. But for this purpose, because it's only a couple, 2 or 3 characters long and it's not going to change, I'm going to use just the normal text here. So you'll see next to a text you have a drop down arrow. So if you click on that and go to use existing variable, this little quantity will always appear if you've got a database connection, so don't worry too much about that. But you'll see here that is the actual description we gave the database link, and that is the column header that is selected. So click on that, click onto your label. So at the minute it's actually just taking what was in there as 10. So if I just zoom in so you can see that. See that again. There we go. So here it's entirely up to you if you want to actually import a prefix or a suffix. I mean, the easiest way to do that for a database connection is actually in the database itself. On this occasion I chose not to do that, but it's entirely up to you, as I say, because anything in that database field will be linked over to this. So if I just click on this here and check everything is all set up nicely, which it is. The only thing you might want to do is, you may recall earlier, it was actually appearing, the 1 and the 0 were appearing kind of underneath each other. So to do that, if you just double click on the number as I did and go to the style tab, you'll see here you have something called stacked text. So if I click on that, click OK, you now notice it stacks it nicely for you, and then just do a quick size readjustment. And then to align these to that object which is already aligned, select that one, hold down the shift key, select the number, and up here I'm going to align it to centre. The final thing to do, which is quite common on a racking label, is a barcode. So just like I did with that one, if I go to the drop down arrow next to barcode, use the existing variable and select that one. So at the minute it's defaulted to something like code 128, so you can feel free to change it to whatever you like. You may notice there's a human readable element here, so it's up to you if you want to have that to appear, but I'll just show you how you would get rid of that. So you can double click on the barcode, go to the barcode tab, go to define, and then you should let that load. So here you can see you've got quite a few different ones, but here that's actually previewing how it's going to appear. So that don't be alarmed that says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is literally just the preview of anything that's going to be under there. In order to actually make it appear in the centre, if you click print barcode as graphic, there we go. And if you want to remove your human readable element altogether, go to the human readable tab, and then you can either select above, below, or no interpretation. So for this purpose, I'm just going to select no interpretation. Okay. And then OK. So here we go. I'm just going to align that to the label again. Okay. So for now, you may be wondering, right? Well, I've got one there that says 10. What about the other two fields in my database? What will happen is when you actually print, say 3 labels, and you selected the data, the first label will come out as 10. The second label will come out as the next field, and so on and so forth. So I'm now actually going to print this. So I'm just going to go to print, and here you'll see it's actually asking you to select the records. So if I go to select records, I want to choose 1, 2, and 3. So you may remember earlier we set it so you could select individual quantities for each one. It will default to 1, so I'm just going to leave that for now. Click OK. And it says there, the number of selected records to be printed is 3. And down here, it should automatically change to a variable quantity because we've selected the records. It's up to you if you want to preview it, but you will just, because we're not using rows and columns on a CJ Pro, you will just literally see that label again. So I'm just going to check and print into the right one. I'm going to increase the speed slightly, and the darkness, and then, yeah, print. So, because we're printing from a database, it might take a second to actually react. So I'm just going to change the screen over now. There we go.
There we go. So that shows you the speed of the system. So if I quickly show you the unit itself.
So it's catching up now.
Yeah, it's still catching up with the information we sent through. So you see the inside of it, how it works here. So you've got the 100mm roll of vinyl that sits on a spindle in the back, and then you've got the thermal print head sits in the front, see with the ribbon there. So what the ribbon does, it goes, unused bit at the bottom, then goes through the printer, and that's where it physically burns through the material. So basically, just to open it up, you've got the ribbon underneath there, and you've got the guillotine cut at the front. So to just put it back in, just click it in there. So the great thing with the system is it's easy to use, straightforward. The vinyl goes in easily. Keep the ribbon in. So it's a fairly straightforward system to use. Prints quickly. So you've got the durable material. Price of the printer, it's $995. Just got obviously VAT on top of that. The system includes multi-license software. You get support for 12 months ongoing. After that, it's just based on you ordering material. You're training on site, so 2 to 3 hours training. 12-month warranty with the system. So basically, we just give you everything to get you up and running with the printer. So that's the CJ Pro printer. So if you did want more information, then feel free to visit our website or to give us a call, and we do demonstrations on site for the systems, so feel free to contact us. I'll just get James to come round just so you can put a face to the voice.
Hello, I'm James, so yeah, I'm the face behind the camera. So yeah, hopefully that's all good for you, and if you need anything, just get in contact with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.